They didn't ask. They just packed the boxes and told me when they'd be arriving. Like always, I was expected to smile, make it work, and pretend it was normal. My name is Delaney Griggs. I'm 32, a senior project coordinator at an architecture firm in Portland. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, clean. I own a little craftsman-style house on Briar Lane, quiet street, older trees, nothing fancy but mine. Fully mine. I bought it 2 years ago, after finally untangling myself from my family's financial mess, years of shared accounts, just until next payday loans, and surprise bills that always somehow became my responsibility. I cut the cords, paid down the debt, changed my number. That house was my first real breath. But if you ask my sister Ivy, I'm selfish. Because I stopped making myself small for their comfort. Ivy's 3 years younger, but always the one who needed more. More help, more time, more room for error. And my mother, Celeste, God, she loved the role of rescuer. The kind who would weep over Ivy's pain and then hand me the mop to clean it up. Dad, Wendell, mostly stayed quiet. A man who believed keeping the peace meant ignoring the fire. Growing up, my job was simple. Be the reliable one. The good daughter. I learned early that affection in our house had prerequisites, usually tied to a crisis and my ability to solve it. It was fine. For a while. Until it wasn't. I hadn't seen Ivy in almost a year when Celeste called me last Sunday. She didn't ask how I was. Just said, "We've got a bit of a situation." I remember I was folding laundry, towels still warm from the dryer, and I paused, because I already knew. With my family, a situation meant Ivy had fallen, and I was the cushion. "She's had a rough few months," Mom began, voice soft but strategic. "Laid off again. Her roommate situation was complicated. She just needs somewhere to land. And you've got that whole place to yourself." That whole place. My house. My quiet. My earned life. I could feel it happening again. The invisible transfer of burden. And when I didn't immediately say yes, she said it. "You're in a position to help, Delaney. Not everyone is as fortunate as you." I knew then it was already decided. They weren't calling to ask. They were calling to inform. So I said, "Sure, Mom. If it helps Ivy get back on her feet, I don't see why not." She paused. A beat too long. Then, "Oh, good. That's really kind of you, sweetheart." They thought I'd caved. That I was back in the role. What they didn't know, what no one had thought to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that house for 3 weeks. And I had no intention of ever letting Ivy set foot in it again. There's a rhythm to manipulation when it wears a familiar face. It starts soft, like a hand on your back pretending to guide, not shove. That entire week, I watched it unfold like a dress rehearsal. Mom texted daily. Little things. Ivy's dietary needs. Her preference for a firm mattress. Whether I had an extra set of towels. No pressure, just making it easier for everyone. Dad called once, which was rare. He asked if I still had that fold-out couch in the den. I hadn't had a den in years. And Ivy, she texted me a thumbs-up emoji. No words. Just that. Like I was a hotel she'd booked with no deposit. I didn't correct any of them. Didn't mention I'd rented out the Briar Lane house to a travel nurse from Minnesota named Cammie. Quiet, polite, paid 3 months in advance. Didn't tell them I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment above a bookstore downtown, walls still bare, mattress on the floor. I didn't say anything because I already knew how it would go. If I explained, they'd tell me I was overreacting. If I defended myself, I'd be labeled dramatic. If I reminded them that this was my life, not a waiting room for Ivy's recovery arcs, they'd call me cold. So I let it play out. By Friday, Ivy posted a selfie in a U-Haul. Caption: Big changes. Feeling hopeful. Let's go. Mom forwarded it to me with 3 hearts and, so proud of her courage. She's trying, Delaney. That word again. Trying. Trying had always been Ivy's greatest weapon. She didn't need to succeed, she just had to look like she was struggling valiantly. And the world would rally. Especially Mom. What no one seemed to remember was that I'd tried too. Just not loudly. Not publicly. I just done the things. Paid the bills. Covered the insurance. Co-signed the lease she walked out on. I'd tried, and then I'd delivered. And when I stopped delivering, I became distant. Saturday morning, I left early. Drove north along the 205, let the fog settle into my bones. Parked near a trailhead I didn't plan to hike, walked into a coffee shop I'd never been to. I sat by the window, cupping a mug that burned my palms, and waited. By noon, the texts started. Mom, we're here. Ivy's unloading now. Where should we put her dresser? Dad, Delaney, we're at the house. Did you change the locks? Ivy, are you serious? The final one was a voicemail. Mom's voice, sharp and breaking. There's someone else here. She says she lives here. Delaney, what the hell is going on? I didn't answer. I just sat in that cafe, stirring foam into nothing, and let it all roll past like weather I no longer had to stand in. They'd brought boxes to a house that didn't belong to them. They'd planned an occupation, not a conversation. And now they were locked out of a story they thought they were still writing. By 5 p.m., they were standing outside my apartment. I knew they'd come. Even as I browsed the fiction table at Powell's, even as I ignored the buzzing of my phone, I knew. Mom never let things go. She escalated. I watched from the second-floor window. My building's nothing like Briar Lane. Brick, narrow hallways, no front lawn, just a small stoop and a buzzer that doesn't work right. They were there. Celeste, Wendell, and Ivy. And a trunk full of her things. Cheap plastic drawers, throw pillows, a guitar she didn't know how to play. I waited a full minute before opening the door. I didn't step out, just cracked it open halfway, hands still on the lock. You found me, I said flatly. Mom looked flushed, her cardigan misbuttoned, lipstick smudged. Dad held a duffel in one hand, shoulders already tensed. Ivy wore sunglasses even though the sun had already dropped behind the skyline. We tried calling, Mom said. You didn't answer. I know. Why are you here? Ivy asked, gesturing around like it offended her. This isn't what happened to Briar Lane? I moved, I said. You moved where someone else lives in your house? Mom snapped. We were bringing your sister home. No, I said. You were moving her into a place I never offered. Dad stepped forward, voice tight. You said she could stay with you. I said if it helps Ivy, I don't see why not. I never said where. A pause. One of those breaks in sound where even the air feels offended. You tricked us, Mom whispered. No. You assumed. I just stopped correcting you. Ivy's arms were crossed now. This is petty, Delaney. Seriously. You always act like you're so above everyone, so evolved. But this is just cruel. I tilted my head, still calm. You packed your life into boxes and drove across the city based on an implication. You didn't ask. You didn't confirm. You didn't respect me enough to even check if I wanted this. Ivy stepped forward, mouth trembling. You're my sister. And for years, I said, you've confused that with access. Free housing. Free labor. A safety net you never even tried to build yourself. Dad moved between us, voice rising. Enough. We're not leaving. You owe this to your sister. After everything we've done for you. And there it was. Oh, the word that always circled just beneath the surface. Every favor I gave. Every debt I paid. Every night I lay awake doing math for problems I didn't cause, framed as a family virtue I was supposed to uphold. I stepped back, reached for my phone. What are you doing? Mom asked, suspicion flaring. Fixing it. I dialed. 3 rings. Then, 911, what's your emergency? Yes, I said. I have 3 individuals on my doorstep. They're not on the lease. They weren't invited. They're refusing to leave. I'd like to report trespassing. The silence outside the call was instant and volcanic. Delaney, Mom whispered, eyes wide. You're calling the police on your family? I asked you to leave, I said. You didn't. The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. Ivy's face crumpled. You're ruining everything. Do you even know what people will think of you? Yes, I said. They'll think I finally closed the door. The patrol car pulled up 13 minutes later. Female officer. Calm, but firm. Hand on her hip like she didn't need to use it. She looked at Ivy, my parents, and the cluttered trunk behind them. Then at me. You made the call? I nodded. They're not tenants. They weren't invited. My mom stepped forward like this was a school meeting, not a legal issue. This is a family misunderstanding. The officer barely blinked. Ma'am, this is her residence. If she's asked you to leave and you've refused, that's trespassing. Dad's face turned a color I hadn't seen since I told them I wasn't coming home for Christmas. Ivy looked like she was deciding between tears or shouting. You'll regret this, Delaney, she said, voice shaking. You don't just cut people off like this. I looked at her. The person who'd once left my spare bedroom covered in fast food wrappers and unpaid bills. The person who'd called me a selfish control freak in a group chat when I wouldn't co-sign her second lease. I've regretted everything up until this point, I said. This is the first thing I'm sure of. They left. Eventually. Not quietly. Not gracefully. But they left. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. 9 from Mom. 2 from Dad. The rest from area codes I didn't recognize. Then came the texts. How could you do this to your own sister? Your mom is devastated. Ivy's sleeping in her car. Is that what you wanted? I didn't reply. I just scrolled. Then I saw it. A Facebook post. From Celeste. Public. 3 paragraphs and a crying emoji. We raised our daughters to love each other, but one of them has forgotten what that means. Our hearts are broken. Ivy deserves kindness. She deserves family. Not this. Hashtag family first. Hashtag unconditional love. Attached was a photo of Ivy at age 6, holding a teddy bear I'd bought her with my first summer job paycheck. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. Old neighbors. Aunts I haven't seen since middle school. People saying I was cruel. Entitled. Spoiled. Spoiled. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I posted my own thread. No filters. No hashtags. Just screenshots and facts. The $3,200 I wired to cover the mortgage when Dad lost his job. The final notice for the car loan I co-signed for Ivy. The invoice for her DUI lawyer, paid in full. An email chain with my mom, begging me to keep it out of the family group chat. A screenshot of a message Ivy once sent me. You always act like you're better than me. Your life is so boring. Your house is boring. You're just a calculator with legs. At the end, I wrote one sentence. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped signing up for emotional debt I didn't create. Then I turned off my phone. Not because I was afraid, but because I finally didn't need anyone's permission to be done. That night, the apartment was still. No voices from the hallway. No buzzing phone. No shadows pacing outside my window, waiting for me to explain myself. Just the hum of the fridge. The soft creak of old pipes shifting like bones after a long rest. I made tea, chamomile, though I didn't need sleep help anymore. I just liked the way it felt in my hands. Solid. Warm. Mine. I didn't feel triumphant. Or angry. Not even relieved, really. I just felt done. Done performing. Done translating my boundaries into softer words so other people could swallow them without choking. Done being the backup oxygen mask for people who never learned how to breathe on their own. My phone lit up once. Then again. Mom. Then Ivy. I didn't open the messages. I didn't need to. I knew the rhythm already. Shock. Anger. Guilt. Pleading. Always in that order. I blocked both numbers. Not out of vengeance. Not out of pride. Out of preservation. Not every door needs to stay open just because someone knows where it used to be. I stepped onto the balcony. It was cold, but not harsh. Below, the city moved. Headlights, storefronts, strangers laughing over tacos, someone walking a dog in a puffy coat that made them look like a marshmallow. A neighbor 2 floors down glanced up and waved. I waved back. Just a small gesture. But it felt more real than years of forced holidays and thankless rescues. Inside, I turned off the lights. One by one. Living room. Kitchen. Hallway. No framed photos. No traces of performance. Just space. Just quiet. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a villain in someone else's version of events. I didn't feel like a cold daughter or a failed sister. I just felt like myself, finally occupying a life no one else was editing. They'll tell the story how they want. That I changed. That I turned away. That I disappeared. Let them. I didn't vanish. They just stopped looking in the right place. And now, for the first time, I'm home.